Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker today is Vietnam veteran Doc Fink. Doc Fink was a Fleet Marine Force Navy corpsman attached to the 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, in Vietnam in 1967 through 1968. His battalion was involved in major operations and battles along the DMZ, including Con Thien, Gio Linh, the Rock Pile, and the 77-day siege of Khe Sanh. After Vietnam, he struggled with PTSD, and in 2008, he nearly died of cancer by Agent Orange. He is currently involved in the Veterans of Foreign Wars in Temecula and the Marine Corps League in Wildemar. Doc Fink is also on the board of directors for the 1st Battalion 9th Marines Association. He currently is serving as their historian, collecting the stories of the Marines and corpsmen of his battalion, known as the Walking Dead. Ladies and gentlemen, Doc Fink.
Thank you. It's such an honor to do this. I know there's guys that have stories. We could have stories all day, couldn't we? We need to tell our stories, and it's important to talk about it. After Vietnam, the welcome we got was so shameful that I didn't talk about Vietnam for 20 years. Nobody knew that I had been to Vietnam. And then I started going a little cuckoo, going through the house at night, checking the windows and doors, picking up my kids and shaking them. And I was at a church, and I told the brothers in the church, I said, if you don't pray for me, I'm not going to make it. I was really going down the tubes. But they prayed. I'm still here. I wanted to tell you, I invited one of the members' sons from 1-9. He's sitting right here. His father died at Khe Sanh, so I want you to stand up. His name was Ron Rios. He's got a picture of him. And the other thing is that I don't have a slide of my wife in this show, but she told me to take it out. It's too long. I got to shorten it out because I spoke yesterday at Camp Pendleton, and I took 35 minutes when I was only supposed to go 30, so I'm very careful today. This is going to be a fast slideshow. I took out a bunch of them, but my wife is back there. I want her to stand up, and she's been with me since Vietnam. Okay, so basically my story is about I had a really good dose of combat with one of the famous battalions in Vietnam. They're called the Walking Dead, 1st Battalion, 9th Marines. I had a real good heavy dose of PTSD, and I wound up, the cancer was weird because my local doctor just kept saying, oh, you're okay, just take these antibiotics. And I kept getting worse and worse till I finally couldn't breathe. And then he said, the friend of mine said, go to the emergency room. So that I went in and they said I had about a week to live. So I'm still here after all that. I wanted to tell you, I actually was a Navy corpsman. When I got my draft notice, I had been pre-med in college. And the recruiter, I said, I'm not going to go in the Army because the Army goes to Vietnam, and I'm going to be safe. I'm going to go in the Navy Reserve. They don't even use those guys, you know. That's what I thought. And, well, boy, the recruiter gave me 2 choices. He said, you can be a barnacle scraper or a hospital corpsman. Here I was pre-med. He saw my records. I was such a sucker, you know. He saw my records, and I said, well, I don't like barnacles, but I don't want to go to Vietnam. And he said, oh, no, you won't be going to Vietnam. So anyway, it's a long story short. I went to a year at the Navy Hospital in San Diego, and then I went to Camp Pendleton for Fleet Marine training. That's what they called us, devil docs. So you get a drill instructor from the Marines to yell at you, and I'm wearing a hat indoors, which Marines don't like, right?
That's correct.
And they've been yelled at about it before, but my head gets cold, and I have an excuse from the Agent Orange, so I just say it's Agent Orange, you know.
Noted.
But anyway, I have a picture. When I got sent up to the DMZ, actually before I got to the DMZ, I went to Dong Ha, and I went running during incoming. You're not supposed to run during incoming, are you? No. Well, the other corpsman that was running during incoming got killed, and I replaced him. So my first mistake was, don't run during incoming, but also I found out later I kept replacing the guys that were getting killed. And suddenly I came to the realization I'm going to be killed. So, okay, I accepted it. I wasn't worried about, I'm going to get killed, because I knew I was going to get killed. And I had that thought all the way through. And I've talked to other guys. They said, yeah, they had the same thing. They just said, there's no way I'm getting out of this. Okay, this was a picture. Actually, I'm in up at the top left. I even have a pointer, but I haven't used it. But that's me with the helmet on. You notice the other guys don't have their helmet. I had to keep telling the Marines, put on your helmet and put on your flak jacket. And not everybody did that. It was too hot or whatever. You got to tell Marines things. They need crayons to write with and, stuff like that. We had a lot of fun. Basically, this is just a shot of assuming different positions during incoming. There's the leaning against the wall and the fetal position, and there's laying down in the fetal position. Both of those are important ways to learn. And basically, if there's a hole and you guys jump in it, there's 2 or 3 guys, you jump in anyway, and then you squirm to get under the guy that's below you, and he's squirming to get below you. And so it's kind of a thing. One time a piece of shrapnel slammed into a sandbag right next to my back, and I kept it as a souvenir. But when I got home, I got rid of all my souvenirs because they basically, I didn't want to put the memories of everything with Vietnam, so I got rid of it. This picture, Life magazine, was one of the guys from 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, and that was taken the day that this was at Conti on the DMZ, and the command bunker took a direct hit. My first time I had to work on wounded, I ran up to this guy who was sitting there who was my platoon commander, and I started working on his arm, but I noticed the back of his head, he was already dead. So I went down into the bunker and started working on the wounded guys inside. And one of them was the senior corpsman. His face was blasted, so I didn't even recognize him. I worked on him and sent him outside, and the picture shows the various guys being taken out of the bunker. And the guy, let's see if this pointer works. No, the pointer doesn't work. Never mind. Let's go back one. Okay. Anyway, I'm inside the bunker with the another Marine that was working on the wounded, and both of us are good friends today. But the senior corpsman was killed that day, and the company commander. So I was promoted again for somebody that was killed, which is a bad sign. I wound up as a senior corpsman. I had 200 men that I was responsible for, and 8 corpsmen. And that's a whole story. I'm writing a book, so eventually, I'll get the word out that way. This is another shot of different positions that you take. Turns out we're going the wrong way, sorry. Okay, that's a picture of Quezon, and the Battle of Quezon was 77 days. We had been at the DMZ for 47 days, and that was averaging 200 to 300 rounds of incoming a day and ground attacks at night and stuff. Well, one day we had 1,400 rounds, and that's still the record in the Marine Corps of the most shelling on a small hill. So that was such fun that I managed to get the battalion that has the record of the most shelling on a small hill. That was called the Walking Dead. I'm thankful you guys got me out there, so. Not you personally, but you. Anyway, the B-52s, 3 planes every 90 minutes around the clock. 3 planes, each plane carried about 60,000 pounds of bombs, 60 or 70 bombs. So carpet bombing around us every 90 minutes. And incoming 360 rounds average a day, and ground attacks at night. The Hanoi Hannah would even tell us, hey, tonight, boys, we're going to hit you. They would name the colonel, Colonel Mitchell, we're going to hit you on the east side. Be ready, boys, at 2 a.m. And sure enough, they would do a probe to see how many tracer rounds they got. So basically, they told us not to sleep. And of course, we know that we have to sleep, but actually, they told us not to sleep. So I slept with one eye open and my 45 on my chest and listening. And I rested, but I didn't get good sleep during that time. It turns out I slept with one eye open for about 20 years after I got back. People would come up to touch me, and that was dangerous. My dad did it once, and he was up against the closet door with my hand on his throat. My wife experienced good things at nighttime. I had different explosions of, bad dreams, choking her, sometimes thinking she was Viet Cong or whatever. And she got through the house. She stayed with me. I don't know. She should get a medal for just being there. Anyway, that's me digging a bunker. It was such a good bunker, and my captain said, thanks, Doc, for building a great bunker. He moved his command group into it, and then I had to build another one for myself. This was after a Battle Hill 64. We had 28 of my first platoon that I had been with were on that hill, and they were killed, and we had to go retake the hill. And in the morning, as soon as I get into this trench line, their battle is going on. I'm working on wounded, and there was 150 enemy bodies left behind. So I was literally crawling on bodies, trying to find the next guy to work on. So that was pretty exciting. It's like adrenaline is something that it's hard to describe. It's a good drug for a time. You can't do it too long, because then it winds up working on you in the wrong way. I'm going to keep, this was, okay, PTSD, as I'm talking about sleeping. Anger management groups are fun. You put 10 angry guys in a room, and what do you think's going to happen? I flunked out of anger management several times, and one time a guy was going to scratch his car, the other guy's car, and they went outside. He got in his Jeep, and he comes racing towards us and screeches on the brakes like he was going to kill us. So, it's like all this stuff of what we went through, it's pretty horrific. The fact that you guys are still here is a miracle. All the things you've been through and having all the things of physical and mental and all that, I'm really amazed that we're still here, basically. It's kind of a miracle. Let's see. After the PTSD treatment, they tried different drugs for me, and drugs can help. One of them really helped. It was one that helped me get to sleep, because it was right in that time before I would go to sleep is when I'd had the worst trouble. If I saw a pile of clothes on the floor, I would think it was the enemy. I'd start yelling, and I had to put my guns away, because I would keep a gun right by my bed, and that's not a smart thing to do. I had actually had a whole list of things that you're not supposed to do. After, in 2007, I was over in Africa and Europe on a vacation with my wife and her family, her sister, and I noticed my legs were swelling up in the airport. I'm running through, and they were very painful, and I was already having cancer, and I didn't even realize it. And it wound up, I started getting, when I finally did go to the VA, they started me immediately on a treatment of chemo, and that almost killed me. They thought I was a goner that first treatment. But they did 5 months of chemo, and then they flew Charlene and I up to Seattle and did a 3-month bone marrow transplant procedure, which is I could write a book. Wait a minute, I am writing a book. Actually, I have my editor back there. She helps me get it all together, but it's probably sometime this year. Okay, the problem I have with slideshows, sometimes you get the wrong slideshow in the computer, and that's what happened on this one. So this is a stirring picture of how good it was for me in the treatment of the bone marrow transplant. You can see I'm just, rejoicing in what I'm going through. And then the picture next to it is a picture of me after the treatment. So anyway, okay, we got a little sign I always like to give to people: never give up. And that's me after 5 years. Veterans leave a war, but war never leaves them. Okay, there's a heavy combat PTSD, Agent Orange. What a exciting time. If you can notice, I'm a nervous guy still. If I hear a noise, one time I'm driving on El Cajon Boulevard in San Diego, and I heard a noise, and I jumped under the steering wheel. And that's not good if you're the driver, So my friend Bill grabbed the wheel. He said, "Rod, put on the brakes. I'm down below." "Oh, yeah, sorry," and then I got up, But basically, it's quite an exciting thing. And this scene from the movie Fury, how many of you have seen the movie Fury? Okay, then, sorry I'm going to spoil it for you, but there's a scene after a tank battle, and Brad Pitt and his guys are inside this tank. They had just defeated 3 Sherman tanks, went up to this Tiger, and 2 of them got wiped out, and they managed to get around and get a shot, and they killed the guys in the German tank. And then they pulled out a bottle, and they took a drink and they shared it. And one of them quoted a scripture, and it said, the Lord said, who will go for me? And Isaiah said, "Here am I, send me." Well, that's what they quoted, and Brad Pitt knew the scripture, and they kind of laughed at the fact that Brad, the commander of the tank, knew the scripture. And then they said, "Best job I ever had." And they all said it one after another: "Best job I ever had." And I think, even though it sounds crazy, but it's like I wouldn't trade it. I've been through a lot, and I'm not afraid to die. I'm very much helping others as much as I can, and truly it was the best job I ever had. Thank you.